Ekon ka satanam, karta pukanire bone ber, akamore rajuni, sevam guru prasad jak, ad such to God such, heavy such, nanaka hose be such. Ekon ka satanam, karta pukanire bone ber, akamure rajuni, sevam guru prasad jak, ad such to God such, heavy such, nanaka hose be such. The world I see holds nothing that I want. Beyond this world there is a world I want. Oh, there is a world I want. Oh, there is a world I want. Valueless. I escape the chains I've placed upon my mind and open the door to my true self, and open the door to my true self. Letting go. Today I practice letting go. I allow myself to move beyond. Oh, restore my mind. Oh, free my way. God such, baby such, nanaka hose be such. Ekon ka satanam, karta pukanire bone ber, akamure ajuni, sevam guru prasad jak, ad such to God such, baby such. Nanaka hose be such. Ekon ka satanam, karta pukanire bone ber, akamure ajuni, sevam guru prasad jak, ad such to God such, baby such, nanaka hose be such. Satanam, karta pukanire bone ber, akamure ajuni, sevam guru prasad jak, ad such to God such, baby such, nanaka hose be such. Ekon ka satanam, karta pukanire bone ber, akamure ajuni, sevam guru prasad jak, ad such to God such, heavy such, nanaka hose be such. We are expressions of the greatest, the sacred mystery that eliminates the darkness from our minds and turns us toward the light of love. We are blessed with this glorious journey. One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh. I live to tell it is well with my soul. I have confidence in who I am. We live to tell our stories together. I have confidence in who we are. One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh. Listen to the voice that likes you. She will tell you we are one. So let us dance into the oneness together. With confidence in who we are. The light in you sees the light in me. We shine together in glory. One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh, One Guruji Kal Kal Sa, One Guruji Ki Fateh Fateh.
All right, good evening. Saludos. Guten Abend. I try to act very sophisticated, like I know my German, and I do not know my German. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. That's as much as most flattering of a compliment as I can give my whatever situation my German looks like right now. But good evening to everyone who's joining in now, and everyone who might be joining in later on, or after we have recorded this. So welcome, 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 welcome. This intends to be a very sacred space, sacred not in any intimidating way, but sacred in a sense of valuing. And I value good, soulful, honest conversation. So I find this as a space of intentional accidentality and accidental intentionality. There's a little bit of both of those going on because in the accidentality of life, sometimes we get things that are way better than we could have ever planned or conjured them up. So, but we should live as intentional as we can. I think that's something I try to procure and I try to promote. So today it's another conversation. It's a conversation that I feel is a continuation of this line of conversations that have been occurring for the last 8 to 9 months now. And in gathering in quarantine or tertuliando en cuarentena in español is every conversation connects to each other, even if they might be topics that might not necessarily be linked hand to hand, but they are intrinsically held in some holistic way. So that is the introduction, and now I would like to introduce my guest, whom I met some years ago at a festival where Reverend Yolanda was having her performance and putting out um, what makes her performance be very authentic and I think very heartfelt and very transcendental. So I thought it was about time that I would invite Reverend Yolanda. So without any further ado, uh, welcome, help me welcome Reverend Yolanda to today's Tertuliando en Cuarentena.
Woo!
Yay! Bienvenida! Welcome!
Thank you, love. Thank you so much. It's so nice to see you again.
See,
Wow.
see. It's
Yeah.
good to see each other, even if it's through these pixelated
Yeah,
virtual ways. But I'm appreciative of this because it's way better than not this.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's nice because I haven't seen you in person in a long time. So, you know, actually this way of communicating has helped me reconnect to a lot of people that I don't actually get to see too often. So it's very nice to do this today.
Yes,
Thanks for
yes,
asking.
yes, and I'm happy to I'm happy to what will be this tertulia. What we will talk about your life, your pilgrimage, your artistry, the things that you create with your music, with your hands, with your life experience. But something we like to start things off here is talking about the current context that we find ourselves in. The
Absolutely.
context of being in this situation of pandemia, which is something that well, probably not to say everyone, but I would probably say none of us have ever lived through. So,
Right.
I start with this sort of like three-layered question, like, what were you doing, professionally, personally, at the beginning of the year? Then the pandemic hits. How did that affect that which you were doing? And how has this process been navigated all throughout these last 8 9 months of living in the pandemia? And then the last part of the question is kind of a little bit related to that second part, where it's what have you learned about yourself? What have you learned about others? What have you seen the pandemia brought out of us humans in the best or the worst kind of ways? If you forget any of those questions, I'll try to bring it up.
Great. You can prompt me if I get off on a train of thought.
I'll bring the
Wow.
teleprompter and I'll be like, here it is.
Wow. I mean, great questions. So so the year we met at the Wild Goose Festival, I was really beginning this particular ministry that we created, that me and my husband have created mainly for to bring in the LGBTQAI community, within the five boroughs here in New York City, but also across the country. So we were at that time sort of traveling around a lot, and then we started having uh, Sunday services here in New York City in a bar called the Sidewalk Cafe in the East Village. And so we were doing that, and we were on a roll, and it was going good, and everybody, was enjoying it and everything. And last 2019, during December, was our last live church with a 2-drink minimum, is what we call it, because we usually have them in the clubs. And then as we transitioned into 2020, and this all became very, we began to understand that we weren't going to perform live for a long time. We had to transition to an online format, which we did, and we now are doing it weekly, are offering church with a 2-drink minimum on a platform hosted by a spiritual center called Awakening Together. And this particular group, Awakening Together, is, like we are, interfaith, interspiritual, God optional, honoring wisdom from all paths, and considering everyone as equals, so we have a very interesting time with this community and with this platform. And our followers, or those who enjoy what we do here in the city, have come along with us, some in varying degrees. The Awakening Together event is a Zoom event, and it's a private. You have to be invited only because of the Zoom bombs that have happened and whatever like that when we advertise it. So you either have to go to my website or message me on Facebook or something to get the link. So that has cut down a little bit of attendance because people forget to do that, and it's an extra step. You can't just click and go blah. But for those that are willing to follow us in this extra step, we have really been digging into deeper topics, addressing really some of the questions you've asked, like, who are we, as a people, as individuals? What's important to us? How does we use a book in our ministry called A Course in Miracles, and it's something that we really base our,
I've heard about it.
It's really, it's really practical.
Who is the lady who put it together? Or
well, the woman that actually wrote it, her name is Dr. Helen Schuckman. She was a psychologist at Columbia University, and she began to hear voices, and she thought she was going crazy. And so she began to talk to her colleagues, and one of her colleagues, who happened to be a gay man, encouraged her to write it down. So she began to listen to that voice, and she would dictate, and he would write it down. And they came up with this, amazing channeled manuscript, which really is a guide. It's really an incredible guide. It has sort of a, if you will, a Buddhist, sort of an Eastern teaching. It's not Christian at all. She was an atheist. She was raised culturally Jewish. However, she's using patriarchal King James sort of Bible language in her book. And surprisingly enough, when you read it and you really merge with what she's talking about, it begins to uproot your associations with that language to, traditional Christianity or some kind of religion. So I don't consider myself a religious person. I'm about helping us understand that everything is a spiritual thing. We're all connected. I mean, the material is a projection of our connection to God, so even the word God, we say God optional because the word God has so many negative connotations to it, so I tend to use the phrase sacred mystery when I'm indicating that, because what I want to do is help people pull away from this notion that there's a being out there somewhere, that needs to be prayed to and appeased and, all of this stuff, because we're beyond that, So what we need to understand, I think, at particularly at this time, is that we are one. You and I are one. Like this, and all life is one. Like, hello, hello plants.
Yeah,
Hello
yeah.
animals. Hello bugs. Hello bees. So, our situation, as I see it, um, humanity is moving away from this 2,000 years of patriarchy, which has just, put a stranglehold on everything that we think about. You know what I mean? Like, so it's this top-down authoritative idea, and some people use others to make themselves rich, and all whatever, all that stuff. So I've been alive for 65 years, 64 years now. Um, and I was born in 1956 in Alabama, So I've seen a lot of change so far. However, what I'm really understanding is that we're at the point of fulfilling what was started in the 60s, the dawn of the age of Aquarius. Like, really, that was the dawn. And now we're pulling into, how do we actually, extricate ourselves from this oppressive mindset that we've gotten ourselves into. And it's deep, and it caught, so this pandemic has put us in a unique opportunity to really look at ourselves and look at our communities and see what we're doing. And Glenn and I, my husband, are really interested in food security right now. So as you and I were talking earlier, food security and how to grow things and this, that, and the other, we've recently been able to purchase some land in Vermont, which we really love, and we're going to move to eventually. But in that process, we're learning how to create a sustainable living situation for ourselves. And, because the systems that we've built as a Western mindset are not sustainable. So we have to rethink, like, very basic things, like, how do we get our food? Like, I was listening to Governor Cuomo today, the governor of New York, talking about the pandemic and everybody stay home for Thanksgiving and everything. And it was really like, pleading with people, stay home. And it's incredibly important because so many people just don't really think that something drastic is happening or something huge is happening, but it really, really is all over the world. And so he was talking a little bit, the governor was talking a little bit about who our essential workers are. Yeah, our grocery store people and the people that deliver our food. And so, it started me thinking about, well, what happens when that system breaks down, when there's, no more gas and oil to transport our food from Chile, like, Colombia, all over the world. It comes from all over the place. So I'm really about right now seeing the most practical ways in which I can, take the next right steps for me, and hopefully create a community of people that want to do the same. So I guess I'm expanding my ministry from only music and art. This is my art, but to learning how to grow food. I think that's an incredible thing. And right before we came on, I showed you my worm composting bin that just arrived in the mail.
That's phenomenal. And you know what? Something that captures me there is in as you speak. I get this sense, which I'm not surprised, to be frank, of the willingness to unlearn. The willingness to unlearn. There's I think Mark Twain was it that says that, which is paraphrasing it. A great part of learning consists in unlearning. And when we kind of have this flexibility to, whether it be intentional, we find ourselves in it, that we see the times are changing, as Bob Dylan would say, and we are having to change with those times in terms of having to have a different sense of urgency. So this that you are partaking with your partner, with your husband, I think it is a very urgent and dire thing to be aware of, because things don't grow in supermarkets. They don't.
For sure. And as long as I've been alive, like, my grandparents grew things and stuff, but I didn't think about it. Like, I was brought up in this, you go to the supermarket and, um, it's just something that we have to really seriously come to terms with. I think for me, what I've been exploring is what are my causes of suffering, and my causes of suffering, which possibly other people can relate to, is not seeing things as they are, you
Mm,
know, wishing that they were something else, projecting into the future where it's going to be all better, or reliving the past. Why didn't it happen this way? And then in the present, not really paying attention to what is actually happening. And for me, that's a spiritual principle. And A Course in Miracles says it like this. It says, let things be exactly as they are. Now, John Lennon said, let it be, and that was in the 60s. So like, I see so many connections in my life. I feel like I'm coming for full circle. And I was actually living in the time that I was born to live in, like I'm feeling in place right now, which is kind of odd, I know, for a lot of folks to hear that. But I think because I'm doing my best to let things be exactly as they are and see what that is, and then take the next right action when I actually understand what's going on.
yeah.
So it's
You know,
kind of the day
it
by day.
it's this this notion of like mindfulness and present living
Hmm.
in a Western society that now has kind of like been more welcoming to precepts from more Eastern type religions. These concepts of mindfulness and of living in the present are more immediate to us than they have ever been. So they could become a bit of cliche to some aspects. But when you, or at least I speak from my experience, as I have been like in dire desperation to not renounce to my current living in my present
Hmm.
because of an idealization I have of days to come.
Right.
And I've noticed through with therapy and cognitive behavior therapy and just being able to recognize my own BS from my previous life experiences, that to live in the present, it is, of course, it is very, very difficult and it is very complex,
Hmm.
because it is to put oneself in a place that you like you're that you don't need wishful thinking. You're not like wishful thinking, because you are in that moment in time,
Hmm.
um, trying to be able to recognize what is happening in that moment in time. I know this doesn't sound, it sounds very obvious, like, well, living in the present, but you are partaking of a relationship, partaking of the conversation. It's like
Right.
Mr. Rogers would constantly say about people he was meeting with or being interviewed by. He would say there's stories that tell of Mr. Rogers saying, telling this other person that you are the most important person to me in this moment.
Hmm.
And I think that's a remarkable example as to what it means to live in a present, especially for a celebrity, because
Yeah.
it is a bit, it is a bit confusing when because we have these sort of like expectations, like a person that this person is more important to me.
Right.
So, and the reality of the matter is not. These myths we have constructed don't make much sense of like making people more
Exactly.
important than others. So living in the present, in summary, it's something I'm really desperately trying to do myself for my
Hmm.
own sake, for my mental sake, for my mental sanity, because I realize how much of an illusion it is to live in the future, because the future doesn't exist.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
Exactly.
We can plan, we have to plan, of course, but we have
Mhm.
to also acknowledge the fact that we have this, and this is what we have. We should never forfeit this that we
Right.
have right now.
Right.
So I want to ask you, so people, get to know a little bit more about you, um, to share a little bit about your experiences in life, and I do it via this question of, if you recognize or can think of, three, at least three life experiences that you feel were transformative in your life, that you feel were key moments, that you're like pivotal moments, that you can kind of look back in the rear view mirror of life, and you can see, yeah, this did something to me.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
if you
for
can think
sure.
of three that you feel comfortable sharing, I'm all open ears, and I'm excited to hear.
Oh, that's cool. Well, thanks for that question. That's fun. I could go on for days, I think. Um,
Go for it. See how we
I
go.
know. Well, I always like to start when somebody asks me that kind of a question. I always like to start with fourth grade because fourth grade was an illuminating time for me. Like I said, I was born in Alabama, and in fourth grade, I can't remember how old I was, but I was born in 1956, and in the fourth grade, I was maybe 10 or something like that. I can't remember,
Mhm.
but I was becoming aware of my queerness. In fact, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, and I say queerness because it's taken me a long time to understand my own place in this rainbow expression. Um, I call myself trans femme gender queer. Now, that means this is an adult saying that, right? But in fourth grade, I didn't have those words, or I didn't have any words really, so I ran across a Time magazine article, and it said homosexuality in America on the front of the Time magazine. Now you can Google this, you can find it. It's like homosexuality in America, and it was in red. It was real dramatic,
And this was in
and
the
the article
60s.
in the '60s. Yeah, and I can
Yeah.
forget which year. It might have been. I can't remember now. The article was describing, it must have been 69 or so, because it was describing queer bars, like gay bars and stuff in New York and San Francisco. And they didn't, in the article, they didn't differentiate between the patrons in the club. They just called everybody a homosexual, just like, so it wasn't like how we are today, where we have words for various expressions within the rainbow. So it was the first word that I had ever heard that made any sense to me about who I might be. You know what I mean? So the word homosexual was like, oh, I'm a homosexual. Okay, cool. So I took the magazine article to school, and I stood up in front of the class, and we were still having show and tell and everything. And I displayed the Time magazine and said, I'm a homosexual, and that did
Wow.
not go over very well. So that was life changing because it started a series of events. I was sent to the principal's office, and my parents were called, and we lived in a small town, and everybody knew my parents, and so it was embarrassing for them, like I had embarrassed them. And so the principal decided, the principal was the main cause of my bullying at that time. He took it upon himself to tease me in front of the other kids, and so that made it okay for other kids to bully me and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, they decided, the principal and my parents decided, that they would create a plan to make me a man. Well, it didn't work,
Let
but
it be known
there
to
was.
them.
But they diligently tried to make me. So they made me throw away anything girly, including dolls and things like that, and
Yeah.
tried to make me be on the swim team or play football or do something, all this stuff. And it was a disaster. And from that experience, I learned that they were all ridiculous. They were crazy, and I was the one that was sane. I learned very early that I'm okay, you know but that doesn't mean, I haven't had emotional roller coaster throughout my
Of
life,
course.
because, you know, I was also very, very interested in spirituality. So, um, just from a very early age, so in high school, this is my second experience, I suppose. In high school, I fell in love with a music minister, and he was very kind, and he knew about my feelings for him, but he didn't make a big issue out of it. You know what I mean? He just encouraged me to go deeper spiritually, and that was a very um, powerful experience for me. Um, because I decided at that point that I wanted to be a music minister, and then I proceeded to join a Christian band. At that time, that was new. Now we have a whole, industry around Christian music. But I joined a Christian band. It was a gospel bluegrass band, and that's where I began to really become a performer. So then the third thing that I think was one of the most powerful things that have happened to me in my life is that I found a group of people called the Radical Fairies. Now, this was many, many, many years later, when I had moved to New York City and had already been rejected by the church for coming out of the closet. And, I decided, forget the church. I'm going to move to New York and become an actor. And so I did move to New York. And in that process, I'd moved to New York in 83. And by 93, I had met a group of people called the Radical Fairies, which which are all over the world. Actually, there are some in Puerto Rico and Texas and all over the place, really. Um, we are a group of people who honor earth spirituality, the connection to Mother Earth and the divine feminine. And so that shows up in many ways, like as there's trans folk involved in the Radical Fairies. There's also men who just wear beards like you and do in dresses and makeup and stuff like that, and just so a variety of authentic spiritual expression, expressing the divine feminine. And so that was the first time that I had become exposed really to or taken on this idea of the divine feminine. And that pursuit, that awakening and remembering who I am, led me to seminary, and then to finally understand my own gender identity, which I now call trans femme genderqueer. So there have been so many instances of miracles in my life, that I could go on, like I said, for days. But those are the three things that I think are really, woo, powerful for me.
Something I throughout my experience talking with a number of people here, and I've had a number of people here that are part of the part of the LGBT community or LGBTQ plus population, and I've noticed that there's this generally speaking with each and every one of the people part of those communities I've shared with, that they've had very gutsy moments
Mm,
throughout their lives, and
mm,
sometimes at the very early on in their young years, or later on. But I feel that that the conversations I've had with these with some of my friends of mine um, have revealed this sense of courage that I don't normally experience in mainstream sort of type circles. This sense of insurgency and of urgency to speak out, and I think just taking a bit of a liberty here to comment, but and I do it very carefully, and I think it has a little bit to do with kind of a sense of life or death, like a
mm,
sense of like I feel and I reckon that silence is not an option.
right.
Maybe I ventured through it as an option, but I've arrived to the point where it is not an option,
Right.
and I have I mean, just through these conversations and just thinking back about when I was deconstructing my own perception of LGBT folk, through my friend actually Jay Baker,
Oh, yeah, I love Jay. I
and
love
saludo
Jay.
Jay if you're
Oh, yeah.
out there. Um, Deconstructing that to me was very healing,
Hmm.
because of course, because you're deconstructing myths. You're taking apart stuff that you were imposed that
Yes,
have nothing to do with the sense of reality, and then you
exactly.
encounter people who are like, they're not how I thought they were. And I mean they, which is a sense of plurality. Everyone is different, but I mean this caricaturization, this cartoonification of the other, and and acknowledging the fact that yes, I think that there is a very real fact that LGBT folk, Q plus, go through experiences, and this is in the best case scenario because some of them, sadly and tragically, they leave because it's too much. It's too much. It's too
Truly,
much that is put on them.
truly.
So I mean, I completely understand that. Like, it's not. I have not ventured or experienced near anything towards it. I've experienced a little bit through my sense of insurgency and provocation and
Mhm,
problematization
mhm.
with status quo, but I can nowhere nearly say that I have ventured anywhere near that. So when I hang out with people, I sit down and I really like to hear their stories because they really affect me deeply. And I'm like, what? How can I be more like this person? Because they have this sense of urgency to, hey, like I can't sit back. I can't sit back and just be like, I really bind. So this sense of urgency, I think, is very admirable. And I think, for
Mm,
example, speaking about religious communities, some religious communities are realizing
mhm.
that gift that
Yes.
is a part of, and I don't know if it's a gift as a response of the status quo and how horrible shit it is, that they have just thickened their skin so much that they fuse into this presence that they are able to. I mean, maybe it's part of that, but fact of the matter is that it is for people, anyone out there that thinks that it is a scary process to sit down with the other. Yes, it might seem at first,
Mhm,
but man or woman, like, it is so rewarding to sit with the other,
mhm.
to find yourself, because I've been
Yeah.
able to find a lot of myself
Mhm.
in that other that isn't so much other. Um,
That's a
and I
great.
just think of,
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought. No, no, no.
no, my thought is going to lead to a whole other thing. So you
Well, I just think that that's a it's an it's the opportunity of our time, I think, is to realize that there is no other. Now we're all coaxed, we're all conditioned to believe that there are, that there is. So we have all these labels and, you know, all of that. And, I'm not saying our identities are not important. They are, like I love, my identity and everything. However, in the greater scheme of things,
Mhm.
um, we're all the same. We are one. We are the same. We have, almost everybody I talk to really, and even my own blood family is so different from me, but um, we we can all agree that we want to make a safe community for us all to live in. You know what I mean? Like it's getting ridiculous. I mean, it's always been ridiculous, but it's like finally the veil is lifting, I think, and it's a momentous time. I You and I are not other, from each other. We are expressions of the divine, whatever you want to call, whatever you want to call that. I mean, I like the word divine because it's divine. It reminds me of the drag queen divine. But It is, if you just think of the miraculous nature of living. And the thing is that we're, in our society and everything, that's why I'm so interested right now in growing food and learning how to do that and all that. We're so disconnected to what actually the miracle of life itself, and until a baby comes along and then we're like, but, just growing things and getting to understand that how connected we truly all are on this planet, is a major, major understanding to come to. So, my journey has been my specific thing to do in the world, but your journey is every bit as important, and I want to learn from you. So that's where I'm at. Me and Glenn with our especially on our teaching platforms or our service platform, whatever you want to call it, our Sunday nights. And we also have a Wednesday night group where it's very intimate and we just really dig into what's going on with people, and we are present with each other in our pain and our grief, and it helps, it helps to be with each other and witness each other's personal growth, so
My first impression when I met you, and I don't know if I think I had some and be noted that this was probably 2012, 2013. Can't pinpoint it,
mhm,
but let's say it's around 8 years ago, perhaps. And I think it was looking at the lineup, and I saw Reverend Yolanda, and I saw a picture. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is I have to witness this. And then I know you. I think you performed, your own set, and then
mhm.
also intertwined with some other activities in that one in particular. But I want to ask you, like, what has it been like to partake of this, let's call it quote unquote unique ministry or unique approach to gospel music, especially gospel music that has a number of continual encounters or disencounters in terms of what could be associated with gospel music. Some things that might take a lot of people to scenarios that are very conservative or very like tight-ended. Uh, but again, the scenarios are very liberating. When you think about black gospel music, and
Yes.
you think about those essences of liberation, of like, the people who were held captive and enslaved, and those moments that they found each other in the fields or whatnot. There were songs that kind of kept them going or whatnot, not to in any way justify what was being done to them, or to even
Right.
legitimize any sort of resiliency, which I have the very complicated relation with that word. But what has been your experience in terms of perhaps, maybe I like hearing stories, and I like the specificity of stories. If you can
Yes.
think of maybe like moments where you can recall like people perhaps experiencing this show, this experience that you put together, and them being completely taken back or being completely scandalized. Like, do you have any of those stories perhaps? And maybe you can curate it to a point where maybe you have some stories of people that did not conceive well, but then there was a conversation. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just any stories that you have from all the spectrum, from anyone who just really digged it to anyone who perhaps was like, "Wow, what did I just experience? What is this?" And then maybe any fellowship or conversations that you feel are worthy to share, of people that are perhaps in the other end of things in terms of
Mhm.
tight-ended and maybe feel scared, but maybe through a conversation. I like hearing stories because I think people relate with stories, and then they
Yeah.
can they can hear a little bit of
Mhm.
themselves in the stories, and
Mhm.
maybe they won't be feel comfortable to approach it,
Yep.
and then they hear other people's stories and they feel like, wow, that's I read into that.
Oh, I love stories too, and thanks for asking. And again, I could go on for days about this, how many stories there are. However, I'll start with the Wild Goose Festival where we were, because where I think we met, um, because right then was the time in my life when I was really making all of these connections and healing my relationship with the past, and specifically with Christianity, because I did start playing Christian music at age 16 with a professional, you know, band, gospel bluegrass band.
Hmm.
And so I was on the stage, at Christian music festivals, and met lots and lots of Christian acts, and I was in the closet, you know what I mean? So and also my relationship with music itself, gospel music, um, Black gospel music, is very inherent in my soul and in my being because of where I was born, which was, I think, which was Muscle Shoals, Alabama, which is called the hit recording capital of the world, which when I was growing up was a huge recording center where, hit after hit after hit, like seriously, Aretha Franklin, the whole Respect album, all of that, and um, the Rolling Stones, the Wild Horses album, of course, Leonard
Mm.
Skinner, but then other uh, lesser known artists too, but would come into the studios. Churches would bring their choirs, so, and my father was involved in the music business, my friends were involved in the music business, so music was huge, in my life, and a huge influence. So I had a lot of healing to do, because being interested in gospel music, as you say, from a very young age, um, really took me to places where I didn't expect myself to be as a trans femme genderqueer person, Um, so at the Wild Goose Festival, I had just created a set of music that combined old spirituals with songs that I written in response to those old spirituals, but also taking some of those old favorite gospel tunes and rewriting them a bit to expand, hopefully, their appeal to those people that weren't necessarily Christian, So
Hmm.
I was sort of trying this. So for me, the point was to try to build bridges between diverse communities, right? So I had in my show a version of How Great Thou Art, which is a powerful, moving song, And
Yeah.
mostly I left it as it was, but I created a verse that said, I've walked these I've walked these paths in 6-inch heels and platforms, and sometimes in manly rugged boots. I know that God is ever with me, and now I share a brand new point of view. So I was referencing my own experience as a trans femme, genderqueer, authentic person, you know, relating itself to the tradition of gospel music, Now, the word gospel means good news. So why not? It's good news. I'm a fully realized HIV positive, trans femme, genderqueer, authentically loving and understanding myself to the best that I can in this moment. And I love spiritual music, right? I love God, what I consider God, sacred mystery, and I love this song. So I'm just gonna sing it out, and I was singing it, and my brother was there on stage with me playing bass, and this was the first time he'd ever heard me do my thing. And he's also a music minister in North Carolina, so this was a big moment for me, right? And I get off the stage and somebody comes up to me and says to me, "You just ruined my favorite song." While I'm having this glorious ecstatic experience, right? I'm having this glorious experience,
Yeah.
I couldn't, I was so, I laughed. I was like, oh my God. I said, what, are we living in the 50s still?
In some places we are.
Exactly. That person, bless their hearts, they did not know what to do with me. And I've had several of those occasions because I did make it a point to tour with that show through the South, and I did for 3 years. And I went to not only Wild Goose Festival, but lots of churches from, I even went out to Colorado and back, but I did lots and lots and lots of churches, and some where I was surprised that I was asked to come, and there's always one or two in the crowd that were just not having it, And then one time in North Carolina, I was performing at the Carrboro Arts Center. Now, the Carrboro Arts Center asked me to come bring my show, which I called Reverend Yolanda's Old Time Gospel Hour. And in New York City, I had won 2 major nightlife awards for this show, and also had, because of this show, had gotten inducted into the New York State Blues Hall of Fame. Now, like, how did that happen? I don't know, but we're in New York, and people responded amazingly, right? So in this show, I'm giving you sort of a story about my journey. So in one section, I show slides of different outfits that I have worn throughout the years as I've been trying to figure out my relationship to male, female, in between, right? So there's this one picture in particular that I like to show because it's so outrageous, and it's a ridiculous costume, right? There's nothing real about it at all. All you have to do is look at the picture and laugh, because it's such a buffoonery thing. Now it does emphasize, overly large breasts and overly large male genitalia. So I'm wearing it at the same time, right? And my point being the ridiculousness of this binary idea that there's only male or female, right? So I'm making this point. And a whole section of people at the Carrboro Arts Center stood up and walked out. However, those that stayed really, really enjoyed the show and gave me a standing ovation at the end. So what you gonna do? What you gonna do? You live your best life.
Yeah, sometimes I feel that it's using that show as a metaphor. If you sit through sometimes, sometimes sitting through some things that you might not sit right through it, and you might not feel quite comfortable, but sitting through can be very rewarding, and your innermost deeper self will thank you for sitting through and having uncomfortably ventured through this maze, because at the other side you will come a much better person. I wholeheartedly believe that in many contexts of life, like we can allow ourselves to just bite our tongue for a little bit and just take it, because at the very worst you'll maybe feel the same, but it is unlikely, because something's going to happen inside you, and then you'll be at the end asked full of questions perhaps, and that's magic, that's beautiful, because it is in questioning and it is like questions that you'll learn. So I believe that wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. Like, I'm all for questions, also I've learned that very thing, like you say, just sitting through it, just having the wherewithal to contain your emotions at the moment for just a little while, so that you can actually hear what the other person is saying. I've had this, you know, I've been practicing that this 2020, this whole year, really have. There are points of view that out there, which is good to know they're out. It's good to know, like, what your friends and family think, right? You need to know, like,
Sure.
again, truly, you need to know where you are, in order to navigate properly, so I've I think you struck upon something that's really, really good. Somebody very dear to me, let me know where they were at, about very sensitive subjects, that we're grappling with here today in 2020. And I was shocked, but I allowed myself to listen, so that I would understand from their own mouth, what they have to say about themselves and their beliefs, instead of trying to cut them off and convince them otherwise. And I needed to put a boundary around that person. So I'm glad that I did, So it's important. It's important to really listen to each other, because then where you are, Listen, trust somebody when they tell you who they are, because they are.
And that's what I was speaking before about this notion of idealizing. Not only do we idealize ourselves sometimes, but we sometimes put this whole idealization on other people because we're so uncomfortable around them, whether that person might be whatever end of the spectrum that person might be in, to the left, to the right, we might feel uncomfortable around them. So then we idealize them, and then we either we explicitly tell them or we just keep it to ourselves because we want to remain with this sort of construction of them. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people do that even within like intimate relationships, and then
Right.
and that is just a bomb waiting to explode
Oh, for
because
sure.
it's
Absolutely.
you keep on assigning expectations on this other person that other person has not even is not doesn't even know, it hasn't
Mm-hmm.
even asked for. So there's so much in loving relationships, so many things in loving relationships are not loving at all because we put these unconsented expectations over them. Like for example, a person would tell you, as you get to know a person, I'm not interested in having kids, and they'll tell you, let's say it's a woman, I'm not interested in having kids, and then you're like, oh yeah, 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 that's good, I'm okay with that. Inside your head, you're thinking, oh, she's gonna change her mind. And I think that's such a violent thing to do because you are
Right.
not respecting that person's very upfront wish that she's telling you. Honestly, this is how I feel. I wish you honor this. So even thinking that the person down the line is going to change their mind, or even if she does or she doesn't, you shouldn't have that in your mind because she told you, and if you agree to those terms, it's such a basic thing. It's a basic
Yes.
thing. Here are the terms. You agree, and not don't, but the wishful thinking. So then we
Mm-hmm.
we put this forceful jacket on others to make us feel comfortable.
Right.
Meanwhile, the other person is strapped. I mean, how fucked up is that? I mean, how selfish is that? And we
Truly,
do it
it
in the
is.
slightest
Yeah.
ways.
I know, it's so true. We've been learning. My husband and I have been learning a lot about this topic too. In being with each other in such an intimate way. I mean, we live in a one. It's really a one bedroom here in Brooklyn, but it's very, very small. As you know, New York apartments are, very small. So we have two rooms, and the entire year of 2020, he's back to work now. At first he wasn't, but we've just been right on top of each other, and I love my husband and he loves me, and we have a great relationship. Uh, Thankfully, Uh, however, over this year, we've grown deeper and deeper because we've begun to uh, unlock these little things that you're talking about. This, well, actually, I really don't like it when you do this kind of thing, and
Hmm.
we've been able to have conversations, and we've been able to really listen to each other, and it's just helped our relationship so much because we've been willing to listen to each other, to what we're actually saying, to each other, or to what the other one is saying, to me, or me to him, instead of assuming or predicting or hoping or whatever.
Yeah.
It's,
The
I guess that's
idealization of
yeah,
like the filter that idealizes.
the ideal. I like you saying that. Yeah. And I loved something you said at the beginning, the
The
accidentality.
accidentality of intent, yeah, the intentional accidentality and the accidental
Yes.
intentionality. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. That it just made so much sense to me. I was like, yeah, because it's funny. I think of it this way. When I say it, I mean sort of life, this kind of experience. We have to be able to hold uh, dichotomies. Like this exists and I like it. This
Yeah.
exists and I don't like it. You know what I mean? But it
Hmm.
still exists. You
Hmm.
know, and I can't kill it. I can't make it go away. I can't drown it or kill it or shoot it or jail it or put it in cages or you know. I, it, so we have to be able to understand that everything we like and everything that we do not like is a part of our lives, and it's here to share something with us. So my meditation in our weekly Sundays is called the Circle of Love meditation, and it addresses that we are all in a circle of unconditional love, is how I like to say it. That includes everything that we like and everything that we do not like, and that's how we live on this planet. And we can make peace with that because we can learn from it.
I for the past maybe a year, I discovered this a group called East Forest. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
Um, they actually they do uh, like innovative experimental sort of indie meditation type music, and they actually did work with Ram Dass.
Oh, wow.
Um, and they actually, I think it was the last ever recordings of Ram Dass before he
Wow.
passed away. And he has this one track, like it's this whole album. I even have it in vinyl. It's such a great album. It's
Wow.
called East Forest, and then just Ram Dass. You can search it up and you'll find it. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. And he has this one song called "I Am Loving Awareness,"
Mm,
and through it he goes and he says, um, just repeats this mantra of "I am loving awareness." I
mm,
am loving awareness. Um, like loving awareness is the name of is a name for the soul, like
mm.
what you really are, and it leads you to love everything you are aware of: the
Yeah.
sky, the room, this
Yeah.
mug, this
Yeah.
table. Is
Yeah.
having a sense of awareness of even the things that you don't like about yourself. To This is not a call to glorify these things, but it's a call to not be so self inflictive about these
That's good.
things. Like if you
Mhm.
and I was talking to a friend of mine just yesterday. I'm like, dude, man, I struggle sometimes with anxiety, and then I
Yeah.
feel guilty about feeling anxious, and I feel guilty about feeling guilty, and then this, and I have a sense
Yeah.
of OCD, so it's like this spiraling end.
Mhm.
So then he
Yeah.
references this record I shared with him.
Yes.
He's like, think about Ram Dass and think about when he says, be loving awareness. In these
Yeah. Absolutely.
areas, love
Yeah.
them and
Hmm.
transform them, but don't
Hmm.
don't add more aggravation than what you already have by feeling
Right.
anxious.
And even feel the anxiousness, like we are on that same wavelength, very much so, and that Glenn actually has a problem a lot of times with anxiousness, and so what he's been practicing is just really feeling, letting that feeling happen instead of trying to push it away, and then seeing where it leads, and as in the allowing is a loving process because you're allowing
Yeah.
it, and in that allowing it has lessened over the year that he's been really working with it. It's interesting, it's very interesting.
It makes sense. It
Uh-huh.
makes sense because it's almost like in Puerto Rico, we have this saying, we say, try not to drown in a cup of water. Try not to drown in a cup of water.
That's good.
Because sometimes we tend to do that. And this is
Mhm.
not to minimize the
No,
legitimacy of a person who is actually
no,
feeling asphyxiated. But
of
as
course.
you perhaps get a feel of what is really around you, then you can see the cup and you see like, oh wait,
Mhm.
it is a
Mhm.
cup. It is a cup.
Mhm.
I'm not going to drown.
Right.
It'll be a process, but
Mhm.
it's to sensitively make yourself awareness of that. Don't drown yourself in a cup of water. That perhaps in some situations that there could be a bigger scheme, even bigger than where you're at, and that'll probably set things into the right perspective and help you out and whatnot. You before we start talking, you were sharing me that there's a song that you recently, and I would
Oh
like to
yeah.
share it, but I would like for you to
Oh,
to share a little bit of the background of this song that you put together, and then we'll share it with everyone, and then we'll retake the conversation. But give us a
cool.
little bit of an intro as to the backdrop of this song you put together, and then we'll play it for everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, the song is called Queero. And as I said, fourth grade was a big, huge moment for me. At the same time, I was describing, what happened at school. There, I happened to make friends with a girl in my neighborhood who, her and her parents, uh, began to really understand who I was or what I was trying to express, and they welcomed me into their home and they made me, they talked to me, and helped me understand that there was nothing wrong with me, but that, other people around me just didn't understand very well, and that other people can be very cruel when they don't understand something, so she started hanging out with me, and she was a very popular girl. And because she started hanging out with me, they called me queer, but they called her Queero because she became my friend, And we're still friends. And what happened was, Queero and I became bonded in a way that lasted from all of these years, even when I left my hometown and went away and moved to Florida and then to New York and went to school and blah blah blah. All these many years, her love and her family's love for me and support for me, um, made a huge difference. So I wrote this song. In fact, it demanded to be written. It woke me up at like 4 o'clock in the morning one morning and said, "Write me," And so I wrote this song and recorded it with my producer, and we created a storybook, a children's storybook around it, because I do a lot of work here in the city with Drag Queen Story Hour, which is a phenomenal program that we read books to children in the public libraries and schools and stuff. So I decided to create my own children's storybook, and uh, I have a friend who's an amazing artist. His name is Ben Wu, and he created the illustrations. And so we put it all together into a storybook, which you can get hardcover, or this video that we're going to show you now. So
Cool. So before everyone, we're gonna play the tema queero from Reverend Yolanda. So let me take some time to put it together, and we will see each other back in about 5 or so minutes. Okay. Okay. A ver.
They called her Queero. She was my friend. She was my shero. We would proclaim that we were witches, and we cast spells on bullies and bitches. We'd say, burn away my shame. Burn away my pain. I am Queero. I am Queero. In junior high, she became a cheerleader, and I became the one who was queerer. And when everyone else was embarrassed of me, Queero became like family. We'd say, burn away my shame. Burn away my pain. I am Queero. I am Queero. My family moved away and we lost touch. The pain of losing Queero was too much, but the memory of our friendship made me strong to face my hardships for many years to come. My Facebook searches found a woman who grew from that girl. I finally felt her loving embrace at my mother's funeral. She's still my friend. She's still my shero. Living in our hometown, she fights for rights for all of us queeros. We still cast spells on bullies and bitches, 'cause me and Queero, we're powerful witches. And we say, burn away our shame. Burn away our pain. We are Queero. We are Queero.
We are Queero.
I have to say that my eyes were watering up.
Oh,
This idea, this notion of having true friendship,
mm,
it is very moving. Is very
mm,
moving to, especially in when especially in times as these, and especially in scenarios where you don't have any other friends, where a
exactly.
person can see you, not
Hmm.
where a person can. Um, I've been partaking of this workshop with Peter Rollins,
Oh,
and he was sharing the story about I think it was a train conductor, and then of this lady that goes up to him and that starts engaging in conversation, and then towards the end of that conversation, the lady kind of like thanks him, and then he's like, "No, thank you, because you saw me, and because
right.
I have many people who see me here every day,
Hmm.
but you saw me,
Right.
and this conversation was the result of that. Like when we not only see people, but when we profoundly see people and we can enter into friendship, I think it's such a powerful thing that, as you share in the song, that even as many years have passed,
Hmm.
you have found each other again, and you still see that that friendship still is there. And I think
Yes.
that's this song is beautiful. I want to get my hands on this book. I mean, I'm a teacher, by the way.
Oh, no
So
kidding. Oh, wow.
post this, we shall have a conversation about how that can be arranged.
Absolutely. Well,
Um,
Yolanda.net will take you right there. It's the first thing you see when you pop up. So
but I want mine to
thanks for,
be
yeah.
notarized and everything. A little message
Oh,
from you. I would
absolutely. I'd
really.
love to do that. Oh, HR would love to do that. Absolutely.
It would be my
Thanks so
honor.
much. I'm glad you liked it. I felt, like I said, I felt compelled to write, this song, and I just want to say that, like, you're absolutely right about friendships, and that's what carries us through, and so that's why I seek as much as I can to connect with anyone that I can, really create some kind of connection with people. Um, in our hometown, like, she really is an activist and a person who walks the walk, as they say. I just heard from them recently, her and a group of folks there with it's a project, it's called Project Say Something, have been working to get rid of the Confederate statue in front of the courthouse and all of that stuff, and the amount of resistance that they've experienced in that process from you know racist folks around there, has been incredible. But they have stood together through this whole experience, and things have changed, things have blossomed. They even celebrated Transgender Day of Remembrance. They sent me a note saying, guess what, Queer was like, guess what, we're having our very first Transgender Day of Remembrance, which was just this past week.
Hmm.
So I'm amazed really at what friendships can do and how they can affect you over the years.
And also to when you reconnect with her and you see what that pilgrimage it has shaped to be throughout the years, I bet that must
Mhm.
have been very moving to see how she has blossomed into that, and also not surprised in a way, through that friendship you guys have, but to see it and to know about
Mhm.
it must have been phenomenal.
Really phenomenal, and also just so wonderful to know that she also was a teacher, a high school art teacher, actually, and she raised some beautiful children who reflect her values, and so that's how it goes, generational to generation, as we begin to correct our own perceptions of the world and each other, then we pass that down. So
As we approach the landing strip of this really good and fun conversation, that I really thank you so much for sharing. I feel honored, and I feel refreshed. To be honest, I feel very refreshed, and I hope that the people who've been tuning in also have a little bit of that too, because
Yeah.
um, having a space where we can sit down, and even if it's as resumed as an hour and a half, if we will ourselves to have some sort of as best as we can possibly have, to be candid, honest, vulnerable. I
Yeah.
think there's magic. And then it's funny because I was
Yeah.
talking before this to with my friend, and she was telling me about, maybe I'm a witch, and it's so funny, as you mentioned in the song. I'm thinking, and I was telling her, I think witches are so cool, so I really hope you are a witch, please, please, so when I hear
Yeah.
this, and it has a lot to do with God, so many things that we have left undiscovered, or at least that we have had such a horrible stigma uh, uh, passed down onto us,
Right.
um, with things, talk about witches, talk about so many things that have been
Right.
laid before us as facts, or as givens, that in the best case scenario we will find a place where those things will be problematized, and then we'll be able to see on the other side and realize, oh man, I am so thankful I can see this on the other side, because have I been missing
Absolutely.
out?
Right. 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 It's yeah. Like I said before, I feel that human consciousness is shifting, and we're beginning to um, pull the veil off of our consciousness, and I have great hope for the future, because I see it happening now. Like, being, as you said, you were a teacher. I'm sure you have great experiences, and maybe not some not so great experiences, but um, overall, I see a wonderful new generation coming. And I'm so blessed by it. I'm so proud to be able to you know be a part of so many children's young lives. It's such a blessing to me.
I like to close these tertulias talking about this well-renowned Uruguayan author, Eduardo Galeano, and he has, from Uruguay. There's a line of thought that he talks about, thinking about the utopias or the utopias,
Mm,
and he's kind of presents this sort of like classroom discussion about, what is the point of the utopia? What is the
mhm,
point of this thing set out in the horizon, and
mhm,
we strive towards it. So we take 5 steps towards it, and it takes 5 steps forward, and then we take 5 more steps, and then it takes
mhm,
even 5 more steps. So what
mhm,
is the point of this thing that we cannot attain? What is this point of walking towards it, and then it just keeps on moving forward? So so
mhm,
so that you keep on pressing forward, so that
mhm.
you keep on moving forward. And I,
Yeah.
and I think this comments on culture, on this culture that's been sold and passed down to us, on attaining things, on touching
Right.
things, on grabbing the
Right.
trophy, and then
Right.
it
Right.
forfeits the process, the journey, the pilgrimage. It just spits on it. Where that is the life, that is the
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
So I ask you,
Absolutely. Yeah.
what
Okay.
are those things? What are those things? No, no, feedback indeed. What are those things what are those utopias for you that allow
Mm,
you to keep on pressing forward, even in times like
well,
these?
truly, one of those things for sure is children. Like, I meet so many wonderful children, and I'm talking from kindergarten to, I usually deal from kindergarten to like sixth grade at the most. And I am so impressed. It does keep me moving forward and wanting to be here, and the young families that are raising children with such a diversity of experience and learning and exposure to many different lifestyles and whatever. It's We're headed in the right direction. and it continues to make me want to get up every day.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
acknowledge that.
I believe in the goodness of people. I think uh, one of the most awful lies that we've been sold and that we've believed is that we are born as sinners. That is so not true.
No.
I do not have any consideration for that whatsoever. We are not born as sinners. We're born as divine expressions of all life, of sacred mystery, and we are here to have experiences and to connect with one another, you know, really
Entirely.
experiences and connection, So
And I think
we can make
it's
those experiences good or bad, if we
yeah,
want to. But like,
yeah, yeah. It's up
why
to
not make
us.
them? It's
It's
up
up
to
to
us.
us.
Yeah.
It's up to, a lot. It's up to us. And thank you for this wonderful dialogue and kind of like a little bit of a walk through a tad bit of your life. Like I said before, I feel very to use a bit of a Christian cliche. I feel really blessed. I feel
Oh, yes, I do
really
too.
blessed. Really blessed to have
I,
been part of this.
yeah, I do too. I really do, and I feel that as a real thing, not just a hashtag or something, but as a real thing.
Ah, yeah.
I
Hashtag blessed.
Yeah,
I'll make
I
sure
know.
to include it in the video.
Thank you.
And that's the best way of closing, the spirit of laughter and joy and embrace. Yeah. Best medicine that we can have. Gracias. Gracias for being a part of here.
Thank you so much. Thank
And I
you.
like to close, and also thank you everyone who passed by, who tuned in, who will
Yes.
watch later on. Enjoy this, enjoy it from start to finish. And I like to close with, I don't know if you know, there's this Puerto Rico had this famous astrologer called Walter Mercado. And Walter
Ah,
Mercado has a documentary on Netflix called Mucho,
ah,
Mucho Amor, which
I'm
if you
gonna
have
check it
not
out right
seen it, you have to see because Walter Mercado, he was a whole personality and he was an astrologist or astrologer and he blurred gender lines. He blurred gender lines and he was a very interesting person. So
now.
mucho, mucho amor. And you'll be in for quite a treat. So every time he will close off his his segments. May he rest in power because he passed some years ago.
Oh, I
Um,
know this guy. I know Walter. I'm seeing it right now on my Netflix. Oh, yes. I love Walter.
yes.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I
So
totally know who you're talking about. Yeah.
so yeah, no, he was a personality all over the world as well. So he's from Puerto Rico, and he would always close his segments by saying, les deseo que tengan mucha paz, much peace, que tengan mucha paz, pero sobre todo que tengan mucho, mucho, mucho amor, mucho amor. So
Wow.
everyone, we need a bit of those two elements in our lives, and until next time. So thank you for watching. Don't disconnect just yet. Much peace. See you on the next one, everyone. Ciao.
Bye.